Hey, what's up everybody? William here with AR15.com. So I think you guys are probably mostly familiar with Geissele products. If you're not, you probably should be, but they make really nice triggers for AR-15s and they make really nice handguards as well. But one product that I think a lot of people probably don't know that they support is the ACR. So this is the Bushmaster ACR, formerly the Magpul Masada. And this is seeing a little bit of a comeback in aftermarket accessories because the AR market is really saturated right now. So I think companies are kind of trying to branch out a little bit. And it seems like the ACR is one of the guns that's getting a little bit more renewed support. Midwest Industries is doing a new handguard for it, new safety selector lever and stuff like that. So here and there I'm seeing more and more companies come out with stuff, and the ACR trigger from Geissele has been around for a little while. We're gonna put one in this gun today and kind of compare it to sort of the mil-spec trigger that already came in the ACR. Here's the original trigger that I took out, and you can see it's pretty much an AR-15 trigger and pretty much an AR-15 hammer. You can see that this is the original instructions for a regular Geissele AR-15 trigger, and what they did was they stuck this little sticker in here that says follow all the Bushmaster instructions. This trigger does not come with a Geissele hammer spring. The original Bushmaster hammer spring must be used. The reason for that is because if you look at the bottom of the hammer spring on this side, it's bent in. And the part that I'm talking about is right here. See the end of that leg of that spring, how it's kicked over? On this side you can see that it rides right up against the side of this carrier, like on the side of the trigger pack, but on this side it's sticking over a little bit. So right here on that, the leg of that spring has to sit into here, and it puts tension on the safety selector. So if you use a regular AR-15 hammer spring, it's not going to put any tension there, and that's not going to work right. When you go to put this all back together, when you put the hammer and the trigger in this little pack, it's just like putting them in an AR receiver. You know, you got to push the trigger pin through, and the legs of the trigger pin sit on this little bar right down here. And then you just got to kind of, same way you do for an AR-15, you got to push the hammer down, compress the hammer spring, and then push the hammer pin through. That's all pretty straightforward. The only thing is on these, the trigger will kind of swing down a little bit. But anyhow, that's pretty much it. And then you can see right there, the top leg of that hammer spring is kicked over. And then when you go to put this back down in, if you kind of push on it now, it doesn't really go in. And it's a little hard to show on camera, but there is a little spot right in there. See right there where the tip of that thing is sticking over? So all I did was put a little bit of tension over to the side on this. You just push this over this way a little bit and it'll click right in, and that little piece will go right down in. All right, now I pushed it down in and you can see the leg of that hammer spring is up inside of that little groove on the plastic part right there. And now the little safety tension thing is captive. Now it's where it's supposed to be. So after this, you just drop it back down in the gun and put the safety selector back on and you're good to go. So I got the pack back in the lower, and you can see that's what that little thing does. The leg of that hammer spring is putting tension on this little arm that we were messing with, and that's what gives you your detent for your safety selector. Feels pretty good. All right, so dry firing it feels really good. It feels really light, and it's really quiet. I don't know, it almost, hope it works, because it just sounds a lot quieter, like the hammer falling sounds a lot quieter. So we got a few rounds loaded up in this magazine, and we'll just take a few shots with it and just see how it feels, and you know, if it works and everything. Well, obviously it works. I mean, it feels really good. It feels really nice and light. If you're used to two-stage triggers, you're kind of used to taking up that first stage, that slack in the beginning, and then, you know, then you just have that really light break for that second stage. But if you're shooting quick and you pull all the way through it, it still feels super light and super good. Probably the only complaint that I would have is that I thought the instructions were a little bit lacking. I mean, they kind of just put a sticker on the AR-15 instructions and said, go do what Bushmaster says. I would like to see some sort of a printout or something that kind of explains how to do it, especially because it's relatively easy. I would guess that most of the people that are putting a Geissele trigger in an ACR probably already own an AR-15 and likely have already put a trigger in it. So if you've messed around with that a little bit, it's pretty straightforward. The only thing to really figure out is that safety detent lever, which really wasn't that bad. But I do think that they could do a little bit better with the instructions. However, the trigger itself, phenomenal. Feels great, and it's one of those things, triggers and muzzle brakes or compensators are probably the things that when you actually shoot the gun have the biggest difference in feel. Furniture, grips, stocks, handguards, stuff like that can have a little bit of a difference, but it's been my experience personally and with people that I've known that have done modifications to rifles that having a really nice trigger is one of the things that you're like, man, I really wish I would have done this before, because a couple $100 and it makes that much of a difference in the, you know, in the way that the gun feels when you shoot it. If you guys have any other questions about the trigger or the installation, just go ahead and drop a comment. comment. We'll put a link in the description to Geissele's website so you guys can go over and check out the Super ACR and all the other stuff that Geissele sells. I just want to say thanks for joining us here on AR15.com, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.